Hello, everybody. This is Becoming Quantum Conscious, and my name is Bart Sharp, and you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, but also on the UPRN website, as well as Roku, cable television, X, YouTube, and there's something about when I say X, I go blank. So weird. Also, we're on Facebook and other internet platforms all around the world. And of course, we're getting ready for Christmas. And what that means in my personal life is that we are in the process of recording a Christmas show for next week. And I'm really excited about it. It's in two parts, it's a 3 hour show. And I have 9 speakers talking about living in a higher love. And just halfway there in the recordings, I'm already seeing all of these pinnacle performances by people, and they just kind of blow me away how some of them are so good. And tomorrow I'll finish the recording, and you know, I'll be all twittery about that because it's it's been such a fun process to do. Today we have Brian Besco, and I'm going to bring Brian on.
Hey
Hey,
there.
Brian.
Hi. Good to be here.
Brian is of twistedsage.com, and they make a lot of magical devices that help us with the unbalance, the instability of water, electricity, Wi-Fi, radiation, and all of these after effects and results of living in an industrial age that we have going on these days. Um, so, you know, maybe we ought to start the show by just telling us, Brian, you know, what got you into this type of business?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, because I was very much science minded, went to college for a decade or two. And then, my sister Brenda, she did a distance healing on me, and it totally blew the logical side of my mind. Um, And so then she started to channel an energy group called the Elders 3, and she channeled through a symbol. And I usually have one here on me. The symbol is the Triskele or the Triskelion, the three spirals.
Mm-hmm.
But she channeled this in as a symbol of the consciousness of water, Hedika, the water elemental. And so this was about 14, 15 years ago. And so I was getting these out into the world because I just kind of woke up to subtle energies. And so as I was getting these out in the world, these gals here at Dancing with Water, the New Science of Water, they had just wrote their first edition of their book, and they talk about using tensor rings for restructuring water. But they also talk about using the Triskele, also known as the Hedika. And so they contacted us and said, well, all your channeled information on this water symbol, we back scientifically with what we're seeing with this. You place it on soil, it increases root growth in plants 15 feet out, it restructures water. And for us, we see it as it's bringing the consciousness of water more into itself. But anyway, they called me up and said, well, yep, channeled information, our science shows the same thing. About 2 weeks later, they called me and said, well, we're scientists, but there's this guy who sits on our front porch, and when we come home from work every night, he's asking us to contact you. And this gentleman was Slim Sperling. So Slim Sperling was the original inventor. While Slim Sperling and friends, he had a lot of help, but Slim's the one known for it in creating the tensor rings. So that was in 1991 that Slim started this journey. And how the tensor rings came about was that it was because there was a gentleman who discovered these sacred measurements in the Great Pyramid. And you want me to just keep going here, Bart? I could talk and tell story all day. Um, but
Keep
we
on going.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So basically, with these cubit measures, there are very specific sacred measurements, and there were several cubit measures found in the Great Pyramid in Egypt. Now, these cubit measures are measurements that were used to create the pyramids and many other megalithic structures on the planet. So these sacred measures, there was one particular sacred measure that Slim Sperling used, and they created a loop with it, a hoop. When they took that piece of copper wire and they cut it to that very specific sacred measure, they brought the ends together. It was creating a dual field. One side of this ring created a beneficial energy, and the other side, a non beneficial energy. They found out by placing it on a person, and then the person who they had the non-beneficial side, and it started causing heart issues. And then they started playing with this whole concept of twisting the wire in a clockwise fashion. So how a tensor ring is now made is that we take a piece of copper wire. Copper is my favorite crystal. The crystal structure of copper has many healing properties, like the reducing of swelling in tissue. That's why people use it for arthritis. It's an antimicrobial, antibacterial. But the copper wire is, when they make it, it aligns the crystal structure so that it creates a one-way piezoelectric energy flow through the wire. So we fold the wire in half, then we twist it, and we cut it to a very specific sacred measurement. Then when we bring the ends together, it's creating a piezoelectric energy flow that goes one way and the other way. And the ends meet up at the weld, and so it's creating this counter-rotating vortex of energy. Now, it is the very specific sacred measurement that it was cut to that will then produce the tensor field.
Which is your cubit. And what I've understand about qubits is there's 4 different qubit links, and I suspect there's more. I've been meso testing qubit links and found that certain links resonate with certain considerations of what life is. So I would imagine you've done some of those experiments. But I wanted to ask one specific in the Egyptians, but also my suspicion is, when they would do all of these designs, example on a coffin where they'd have these lines that went, and they were not in a circle, but they were curved. They were probably cubic links that would resonate something in the sarcophagus. As a metaphysician that uses muscle testing and other ways to energetically interpret information, that's what red is like. Yes, that's what they were doing. Also fascinating. I have one more question with that twisting. Did you measure your qubits before you began twisting or after?
It's measured after the twist.
Okay.
Yep. Hans Becker, he was a physicist who basically said with tensor technology that all physics go out the window when we start playing with these. Because, the qubit measures, that one qubit measure, the Slim Sperling ring, created 144 megahertz frequency. Now, and you're right, I believe that there was 64 known qubits to mankind. We work with about 6 different qubits.
The
Now, I
same
know,
number as the I Ching, 64 paths of life.
yeah, I that's just what I've always felt. But some of these qubits, like even in the Great Pyramid, some of the qubits don't make tensor rings. There's out of the 6 qubits that are in the King's Chamber, there's only one that will make a working tensor ring of that 144 megahertz. None of the others will produce a working tensor field. But there is one qubit in there that I find fascinating, that it's 26 point some inches long, and it creates the sine wave of the hydrogen atom, because hydrogen has a sine wave of 8.3 inches, And so they determined that this rod was actually creating a sine wave of hydrogen when you cut anything into that
Wow.
specific sacred measurement. And through time, gosh, we have a cubit measure that produces a 333 megahertz frequency. Now, the 144 was more for the physical. Slim Sperling worked with a mathematician, and they created a 177 megahertz, which was a little bit more in the etheric. Then we've created a 188, a 764 that creates a black hole on one side. We don't know what to do with this thing. Slim showed us teleportation. Maybe someday we'll play with that. We've created discovered several other qubit measures along the way.
Or maybe I'm going to just play with this in my own psychic ability. What if it was opening talents and abilities for you to jump into the black hole reality? Like you open to a black hole and just think about
Mhm.
what type of energy you would be bringing into your body. Well, I'd say it's kind of big time energy. Like, like,
Yeah, I don't think we were
um,
ready
um,
for that one yet.
well, we're not ready for it, but
When
when
it
you
came
start
to
to
it,
when you start to make yourself that big, I think good things happen.
yeah, indeed. Yeah, well, and anymore, Bart, we don't even allow the qubit measures to dictate the frequencies anymore. It was actually, gosh, what was it? Probably about 8 years ago, there was a dairy farmer and a dowser out in the Midwest who wanted to create a qubit measure that was good for their dairy cows. So they were professional dowsers, and they dowsed and they got this qubit measure, and they called it the galactic qubit. Well, somebody was at their party and called me and said, "Hey, we got this new qubit measure these guys were playing with." And they gave it to me, and I started making rings. Then I met the other guys who actually created that measure. And we're good friends now. But that qubit measure, when we created that galactic ring, there was a counterpart to it, an energetic part that was not really housed within the ring. And we were playing with that. And then next came along uh, another tool called the key pendant. When I created this key pendant, it's actually energetically an ankh. So it looks kind of like a Christian cross, but then it has the 245s through it, and they're all sacred measurements. It comes from um, it comes from a starburst, which is a sacred measure using straight line qubits to create a field. Now, the starburst was one of Slim Sperling's people that he began with, but this starburst, it was found on the initiate, tattooed on initiate's chest, pre-Egyptian. The starburst, it was seen on the armor of Samson. Um, Gosh, there was a lot of places this was found. But as soon as I made this pendant, this group of etheric Egyptians come to me and started calling me a master builder. I was like, what? Wait. Yeah, I can make circles, really, really well. And which really, we've had people work here and they say, I've worked there for a year and I only made circles. But that's tougher than it looks. But so this was the first time, Bart, that I discovered that I had been creating these tools for lifetimes.
Hmm.
So my sister and I work with what we call the etheric templates. Now, like with the water rings that we make, so we're featured in the second edition of Dancing with Water, and we make all the water rings for them. They've done all the scientific research. This actually contains a higher paramagnetic value than anything tested, according to Dr. Philip Callahan, who is the paramagnetic guy.
Hmm.
So you use this with water, with root growth of plants. It is amazing what the tensor fields do. But anyway, so Dancing with Water, we make the rings for them, but
So let's go into the dynamics of water because it
perfect.
is such a important field, and I think in the consciousness circles I run in, it's a pretty hot topic
Hmm.
because here we are, most of us are getting this water that's coming out of faucets, and of course, water, as a friend of mine calls it, water loses its wildness.
Yes, yes.
And therefore, we can take common tap water and bring it back to water, because bring the wildness back to water just through various techniques.
Yeah.
and
This
and therefore it's beneficial. It tastes better, it vibrates higher, you can feel the difference between the two. Even filtered water, it is totally different. So how do you guys approach that to bring wildness back into water?
Certainly. So we see that as the consciousness of water. Again, Hetica is the symbol, the elemental of water. And so when we work with water, the tensor ring scientifically, it'll create such a high spin rate within the water molecules that it becomes lighter in weight in the lab. You are essentially creating ormus out of your drinking water by using a tensor ring.
And can you define ormus? That's a
I
popular
know.
topic these days, but I don't
I'm
think most people know it.
No, and I'm no expert in Ormus because I can't even pronounce the acronym. So it is orbitally restructured. Oh gosh, monoatomic. I can't even tell you.
But basically, it's like all of the a cell is a singular cell, and it's not binded and bonded with the other cells, from what I understood with Ormus.
Yes, so with my from what Dancing with Water says is that it's not the water that itself that becomes such a high spin rate that it oscillates in and out of physical reality, becomes lighter in weight in the lab. It's actually the minerals within the water that become such a high spin rate. So that's why when
Mm.
they create ormus, that's usually like out of a seawater. It uses a salt base because that's what holds that spin rate is those molecules within the water. So I don't know how they create ormus outside of a tensor ring, but tensor rings, again, this is really what is working with water. Now, to bring the consciousness back into water, here's the thing is that the tensor fields that we create, you know, we've moved so far beyond just working with EMF and the physical restructuring of water. For us, it's all about our light, our consciousness, as well as the consciousness of water, because we see water and all those different earth elementals as here as support and in service to humanity and the earth. And we've seen that water, it's older than the earth. Water came here to be in support.
Water,
And so
water never loses its memory. Even we're talking about thousands of years. Just FYI to everybody.
beautiful. And so that's another thing about the tensor fields is that they are clearing any of that. That's kind of like a crystal. A crystal can hold its core essence and energy and information, but then a crystal can absorb stuff on the surface. And that's kind of the same, I believe, what you were speaking about with water, that it has its core essence, but that the rest of the water it'll hold the energies around it. And so that's one of the huge things about the tensor rings is that it is clearing any of those energies that the water holds. So like let's say if a person drinks water and it goes back out into the system and it's recycled, it goes through reverse osmosis, you're still getting the energy imprints of the person, of medications they take, of whatever it is. So even though water is filtered, it still contains the energetic essence. And
Yeah.
so yeah, using this and yeah, it just
So
4 to 6 hours, putting a glass of water in there. And I tell people to do a taste test is you take one glass of water, you put it inside the ring, another glass not, and let it sit overnight. And you can taste and feel the difference in your water because it's restructured. It allows for better absorption as well as the taste and quality.
and if you drink wild water, I live in Southwest France half the time, and we are getting our water from running springs. They're coming out of mountains from the Pyrenees. We're
Mm.
talking fresh, cold, alive, active. And people that we talk to say, well, I'm 90 years old and The only reason I think I'm this old is I drink this water every day. It enlivens something. But I have a question for you because to live in a place like America or an industrial country, you're always interacting with some form of toxicity, and that's probably a worldwide thing. So we have all of this toxicity in our bodies.
Mhm.
Um, any theories on what this type of wild water, how it interacts with that, or how the tensor ring interacts with those, you know, wide levels of toxins from electricity, Wi-Fi, radiation, junk food, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So with the water, and so one of the key things that I'd really like to touch on that sets Twisted Sage and the tools we create apart from anybody on the planet who creates tensor rings or other subtle energy tools is I was telling you about the etheric templates, the higher dimension aspect of the tools. So my sister and I, we create here first, and then energy, that information is brought into the tensor fields through the sacred measures as we create the rings. So the reason I wanted to share that is because with water, now you've heard of like Bach flower remedies where you can impart the essence of anything into water, and then you drink the water and you receive that information, energy, frequencies, essence, light. So within the etheric templates, for these water rings, you can find the frequencies and properties of the entire plant, crystal, and mineral kingdoms of this planet, as well as all the different rays of light we've worked with, as well as even healing modalities that my sister and I have discovered and learned along the way. That is all put into the etheric templates. So that is a potential. So, with that, when you work with your water and you place your water in there, you can ask your water to carry any frequencies and properties that would be beneficial to you, or you can step out of the mind and trust in your light and in the water and say, bring me what I need.
Wow.
And it will impart that into the water in 4 to 6 hours. So
Well,
then
that
when you,
well that makes sense with saying that water has, I don't want to call it a matrix, but it's connected to everything that holds water, a collective consciousness, so to speak.
yes, indeed.
And and it has like the Oramus, which is, you do take Oramus, by the way, folks. It expands your higher spiritual functionings. Like it magnifies your third eye big time, but probably other parts of your body. It's great. But
It
something in
is.
one cell technology is something special that I don't think any of us been able to define what that is or explain it.
Yep.
But it goes everywhere is one thing that we who are living on the edge all agree to. It's every possibility is available.
Yes. Yes. We actually create a tensor ring called the highest potentials, which holds the and illuminates those highest potentials possible in every moment of the creation. Yeah. Pretty wild stuff. We actually have a giant healing chamber behind me that I created for the American Society of Dowsing Convention on the East Coast here about 2 years ago. And this chamber, we call it the highest potentials chamber. It's a 0 point space of the soul. When you sit in it, it is nothing but your energy unmanifest, all potentials. The mind goes blank when you sit in there, and you just allow your light to come in, and it starts to pattern your potentials and bring out and illuminate those higher potentials. And that's how my sister, before we started the show, Bart, I was telling you about how my sister, my energetic mentor, she's the one who just who channeled in the Triskelion.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, and I was
So,
telling you
so
just a
let me
phenomenal.
let me go back with that. So you're channeling different frequencies in that you're understanding through cubic links, and you're going, "Wow, this link does this. I think I'll just take that and put some
Nope.
symbols in and do some preparation that you do with the copper wire, and off you go in making it.
Y-
Is it that?
y-
Am I getting it right?
it really is. I mean, the cubit measures, these two rings are the exact same cubit measure, but they're completely different energetics because of the etheric template. So one of them is the wisdom, which is all about the integration of lifetimes, traumas, experiences back to soul as wisdom, those things that manifest in your world. That's what the wisdom ring does. The other ring is called the expansive light. And this is one that we are seeing is bringing in your light and expanding it in a way never seen. I tell you, Bart, we've seen many steps in us holding light more than what we've ever held as a human before. And we've gone through so many of those steps up. And it's really beautiful to see that we are actually getting somewhere in this world. We really are.
Mm, that's so wonderful to hear. Um, so it's midpoint in the show. I wanted to tell everybody that you're with Ryan Besco, and we are on the topic of the tensor rings, technology of tensor rings, and how it changes the world. I think I had another title, but I can't remember it right now. But also, you're on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3 on YouTube, X, Facebook, Roku, and the UPRN Talk Radio site and other internet platforms out there. So, also, you can find Brian's work and also purchase like a wide variety of tensor rings, but other devices uh, of all kinds of magnitude at twistedsage.com. And that's twisted because they twist wire, and sage as they are walking magical people. So twistedsage.com. Um, yeah, so this is a wonderful topic. And 64 is a really interesting number. It comes up in a lot of places. In France, we see some of the structures or the artwork in churches having 64 parts,
Oh.
and there's always one part missing. And the story behind that is why is that one part is the God within. It's the God part of the
Oh,
structure,
wow.
the 164th or the 5.128. So
Beautiful.
I wonder what cubit length would open that God energy up in somebody and where it would resonate with their body. Um,
Mhm.
just I get a lot of answers by just asking questions and something shows up. Uh,
Right.
and this has got me really intrigued because the 164th is tremendously powerful. But it's not about power that you make things happen in a direct linear way. It's more
I'm not sure if I lost you, Bart.
still having some internet problems.
Oh,
Um,
right. Here we are.
okay, I don't know what that's about. Yeah, I can
Nope.
hear you now, so we just move on. We're not losing any of the quality of the show except for a 1 minute 30-second blip.
We needed a pause.
Not fast enough to go to the bathroom, but anyway, uh, here we are. So, you're doing some big projects with this stuff because we've been talking about, you put these things on cell phones, and the cell phone isn't radiating out this negative energy and
Yes.
such because people are, getting it that this is not such a great thing to keep these things in your hands, next to your ear, by your brain, in your pocket, by your genitals, all of this stuff. I mean, but you can put a ring
Mhm.
on this, and it uh, changes it.
Yeah, we have actually several biofeedback studies done. The cell phone tab, which is this one right here, this is the one that we have the biofeedback studies done on. And those are published on our website. But basically, it shows that when you have your phone live and you hold it, that it is causing issues within your body. And then once you put the phone tab on it and you hold the phone up and you're speaking with it on a live call, what the biofeedback shows is that when you have your cell phone tab on your phone and you're using your phone, it is aligning chakras, energy bodies, clearing the mental and emotional field, and making organs function better by having your phone on you. So tensor fields are not blocking EMF because EMF is a part of all physical reality. I mean, your heart is a big electromagnetic generator, 6 feet across. So what people that have severe sensitivities to electromagnetics is that, and it's not saying anything negative about anybody, but if you are able to stand grounded, connected, fully within yourself, you do not have problems with electromagnetics.
Hmm.
But if there is anything, some people just are more susceptible. And the reason that we see that they're more susceptible is because there's just not quite stable within their being and they're knocked over easier. Whatever the purpose and reason is, that EMFs, discordant EMFs, can cause issues to many people, but there's actually people that remain untouchable by it. And it just depends on you and your field and
So,
how you stand.
so I got a question about that. Are you saying that it's taking this tensor is taking the energy from the phone and helping it integrate into the body by also integrating your body all at the same time, almost like you become a synchronistic field together?
Yeah, but yes, potentially, because you're, so if you imagine like your heart is this beautiful flowing electromagnetic field, it creates a tube torus, a toroidal field. So it's just this beautiful, magnificent flowing electromagnetic field. Then you take a cell phone or any kind of man-made, and it's just a discombobulated energy.
Hmm.
And so it's very disharmonious. So if you take that disharmonious field and your field is harmonious, but then this comes in and it knocks you off kilter and causes physical, mental, emotional issues because you're totally knocked off kilter. But what the tensor rings do is the tensor rings are taking that discordant field, and because these are very powerful harmonizing field, again, it creates a counter rotating spin. So this in itself is creating that toroidal field, the torus. And as this toroidal field, and it's all in this subtle energy realm, tensor fields are not electromagnetic. They are actually beyond electromagnetic. Now, everything in our physical plane of reality, light, sound, it is all in that electromagnetic spectrum. But there are things outside of electromagnetics, such as consciousness, that does not exist in the electromagnetic spectrum. But this field, this subtle energy field of the tensor field comes in, and it basically takes that discordant field, and that discordant field becomes harmonious. And when
So,
that
so,
field is harmonious, yep, then it doesn't affect us in a negative way.
so, I mean, when we think about all of this stuff happening in the world, and everybody's going, well, how's the world going to survive? You know, all of this electrical changes, and they're just getting bigger and bigger, stronger. 5G towers, yada yada yada. The list goes on.
Mhm.
But maybe there's something that is part of our genome or genetic evolution to be able to just take this energy and it become a part of us. It's not like an unnatural part of us because the body just keeps adapting to everything. Kids today are going 90 miles an hour, where a guy my age uh, goes 55 miles an hour just because the genome is so speeded up. So, from what I'm getting from you're saying is this is an adaptive device that helps you acclimate to all the changes happening.
Yes,
The,
because
the good, the
everything.
bad, and the ugly.
Yep. Yep. Because it's all energy, and these are harmonizing energy fields. So they'll even harmonize the emotional field, the mental field. Um, that's pretty amazing technologies. But and we didn't really talk too much about some of the other EMF stuff. Yes, for sure, like the cell phone tabs, um, household
Well,
electric.
there's so many. There's so many.
Oh yeah.
And
So
you
household.
and it sounds like you've not even explored all of the things. You have 64 different patterns, and how many have you explored yet? It's
Well,
kind of like that.
so, and again, Bart, we are not relying on the actual qubit measure to dictate any energies anymore. Um,
Really?
yeah, yep. Nope, we override the energetics of these. So these ones here are actually the 333 megahertz tensor rings. These are the ones that change the color of sound. We actually make sound healing rings because there's actually people who can see sound. Is called synesthesia, I believe. And
Mhm.
so I was playing my singing bowl at a metaphysical fair, and somebody said, "Hey, that's pink." And I put a tensor ring over it, and they said, "Oh, wow, now it's purple." And so my sister does sound healing, so I made sound healing rings for her in the beginning. And gosh, people can tell the difference, that aren't even sensitive to subtle energies can tell the difference when she's playing the bowl with and without a ring. It just has a different
Wow.
essence and quality to it. And so people are using these with lasers. Oh gosh, yeah. In the very beginning, we made a little. This thing here is called a tensor field generator. It's with 4 rings, and it goes into a sphere. It's actually the Genisa crystal, the geometry. But
Yep. Yep.
this creates a sunshine effect. So when you put 4 tensor rings together like this, it creates, instead of a column of light that a single ring does, this expands it out, and it's creating more like a sunshine. But
Mm.
so we created these tensor field generators, and we got these red LED lights, and this was about 12, 13 years ago. And there was this gentleman in Spain with bone marrow cancer treatment facility that bought every one that we could ever make, because he was saying that the tensor fields, along with this certain nano length of red LED light, that the tensor fields and the LED light, they act together. So the LED acts as a carrier wave for these. So the bone marrow cancer treatment facility, they had these little red lights that we created tensor field generators for, and they would shine it, and it would permeate into the bone, and they were clearing bone cancer in Spain with this. I haven't heard from the guy
Wow.
since, but we've had a lot of people throughout the years. He even here, like Golden, Colorado, there was a guy who was using some of our tools for the basis of his cancer treatment facility, along with foot baths and essential oils, and he was clearing cancer all day. He's disappeared since then, but
Yeah. Well, to me, when I look in cancer as a shaman, it's all about hatred. And hatred is the futility that you can't resolve something. And so the mental thoughts or the situations or the emotions or the relationships that feel unresolvable turn into something destructive in your cellular structures. And
Mhm.
cancer's there as a last second ditch to resolve the emotional issue, which it kills
Yep.
you in the process, possibly. So when
Or
you
wakes you
bring,
up.
yeah, or it wakes you up, but if you bring in a harmonizing vibration, you neutralize that. You're not fighting against the futility of hatred,
Mhm.
and you have this possibility of seeing that relationship in a neutral way and healing it, but it also is healing
Yes.
the body in the process.
Gosh, yes. Heals your whole life. Holding on to that kind of stuff. And that's what we see is almost all dis-ease is just us holding on to crap. you know.
Yes.
And so we see healing is nothing more than release and rebalance. And that's how we approach healing is release and rebalance.
Exactly. And things like hate and sadness and shame and anger all just have frequencies. They're
Yeah.
all vibrational frequencies. And so you're harmonizing vibrational frequencies.
That's right. Yep. Oh, I tell you what, we see miracles and magic every day. I actually
Yeah.
create these large healing chambers, and I've taken them all over the world. And I still have people that come up to me 10, 12 years later and say, "Man, standing in that chamber changed my life." And we see that all the time because
Yeah.
yeah, it's not only raising the frequency and vibration of you, your mind, how you perceive the world.
Well, I'm not as advanced with you as this, but a friend of mine gave me 4 cubic links. As you know, just told me these are the links, wrote them down. And I got some home, some copper wire from the hardware store. And I
Uh-huh.
cut these links out and I started wrapping them around pieces of wood and sticking them in my garden and such as that. But one of them, I got all 4 links and I asked, for prosperity in my house. I wrapped $1 in that little artistic structure I made from these wires, these 4 wires of 4 different cubic lengths, stuck
Mhm.
it in my prosperity corner. And it's funny, I just started manifesting more money. People who have come and lived in my house, they always seem to be doing financially better. And it's just this weird looking
Mm.
sculpture that's in the corner of my room that's just there. Uh, I just think
Beautiful.
it's, it just, there's just so many different applications we can do with cubics and
Mhm.
various things. And it's just fun stuff. So you
It
do
really is.
stuff that on a grander scale, because you teach workshops, you
Mhm.
travel all over the place in the United States, maybe outside, but
Mhm.
you're teaching people to do this stuff. But it sounded like you're doing like group activations with some of these things. Was I getting that right? And if I was, how does that work?
So, as we moved along through our journey, we discovered a tensor ring. Well, actually, one of the people that I worked with for a little while was Jeanette Crowley, not related to Aleister Crowley. She's from Colorado. She channels an energy group. She's wrote The Eagle and the Condor, Soul Body Fusion, celebrated author. She's been mapping dimensions of consciousness for 36 years.
Really?
Now, Jeanette, yeah. So Jeanette is, man, she's the real deal. So my sister and I went to a little gathering she had, and as we were sitting there, the energy group that Jeanette channels, Mark, I heard him ask my sister to stand in the back of the room. And I look over, I see her stand up. She's in the back of the room holding space. Jeanette takes us on this journey. She takes the Pope's keys and we go through the pearly gates. We go through the other gates. We get to a red gate guarded by a big giant red dragon. We said we are the key. We got through this third gate of heaven and we were given the sacred heart activation, that trifold gold flame heart that you always see Jesus and Mary with. This is a facet of your light. So we received the sacred heart activation. And on the way home from Colorado, we sat there and we got the cubit measure, this very specific cubit measure. to be able to put this Sacred Heart activation into these tensor rings. So these tensor rings, most of our rings that are for like Wi-Fi, for EMF remediation, all have this golden fire energy in it, because it will even clear a 5G millimeter wave. I mean, when they first released 5G millimeter waves in Chicago in 2018, I went there shortly after, and we did some research on how these tensor fields can affect the 5G wave. And the golden fire energy is the one that will harmonize even a 5G millimeter wave. Now, that's different than fifth generation communications, the millimeter waves. They're not used very much. They're not a very good technology. But just the whole concept of, that's part of what we're doing to bring in these new energies, is when we discover things out there in our own leading edge of the expansion and consciousness in our own worlds, we are taking those modalities and those things that we learn, and we put them into the etheric templates of the tools. So now then, the golden fire ring, that's what's in most of our chambers too. And we have floor plates, or even these large rings. So when you stand in one of those large rings, it activates that Sacred Heart.
So, so basically, you're um, ex- bringing in other higher dimensional realities into this one and implanting it into the rings. And could somebody just take that, and maybe like a group of four of us, or and put the ring in the center, maybe other objects, maybe crystals, and then bring our intentions of expanding that to a higher vibration all throughout a city
Mm-hmm.
to help harmonize the entire city with the ring
Certainly.
is, like it's almost like a key that guides you. Like this is the vibration, and through our human abilities, our heart abilities, we can expand it. Because really, our energetic fields can go out for miles and miles and miles, and we can
Oh yeah.
place our intention with that. I mean,
Mhm.
there's such potential with that.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing with it, Bart, is that these energies, it is always up to each individual what comes through in your highest and greatest good. They always produce what's in your highest and greatest good. But there's
Hmm.
so many frequencies and properties and potentials that come through here, that if that was all that was coming through here, we couldn't handle it. But it is your higher self or your consciousness that says, okay, this is what I need in this very now moment, and this is the energy that's coming through to support me. And it changes all the time. But
It
yeah, the
changes
golden,
all the time.
yep. And for creating a larger field, this golden fire tensor field generator here has a 5.5 mile sphere of influence. And so the golden fire, it'll even cross over ghosts. Because for years I was looking for a tool to cross the ghosts over, because whenever I'd go to a store like a Walmart or something, I'd be, oh gosh, you guys go wait out in the car and then I'll help you get across when I'm done shopping. But and the golden fire, I have not seen a ghost since, because as they come into the field, the ghost, what activates the Sacred Heart is the soul. And so their soul
Yeah.
steps in and does all the healing, clearing, and takes them home. You don't
Wow.
have to do the healing and clearing and talk them into going home anymore. The soul does it automatically when they come into the field of these golden fire tools.
Well, there's just so many applications with this. It's so amazing. I have a guest he's been on the show twice, and I'm sure I'll have him back because he's such a talent. Hakim Awan. He's from Egypt. His grandfather was the founder of Egyptian chematology. That's the most ancient knowledge of Egypt. Their findings out. But he always
Wow.
says that there's 360 sensory awareness systems that we all have. And of course, for many people, they're just on five sensory awareness systems.
I
But
call
there's
those
many
angelic
others.
senses.
Yeah, but they pop out, and you know when we need kind of tools to maybe help us pop out more, because I'm always in that request and fascination to create more connection to my sensory awareness systems, and I am continually becoming more aware in very subtle ways, and I cultivate them. But it just really sounds like if you had a multi-dimensional tensor ring helping you, you know, it
Mhm.
could take you to a lot of possibilities. And I wonder
Mhm.
which design can help that happen. Uh,
Yep,
it all sounds like fun thoughts.
it does. So this very new wand here this is one of my favorite new wands. This is called the Pure Light of You. Because when
Mm,
this was created, there I was taken to the place outside of this realm where we all
I
come
feel
from.
that. I feel this in Austin, Texas, when you hold it up. It's kind
Yeah.
of riveting.
Yep. So the pure light of you, it was an opening that occurred between the realms from where we all come from and we are to here. And now then, I cannot believe this, but Bart, but the the pure light of you comes through each and every tool that we create since December 5th. And it
Wow.
is a game changer, and that is what put me down for a week. I told you I was sick in bed for a week. It was bringing in this energy, the
Yeah,
pure
yeah. The
light of
body
you.
just has to stop and adjust. Maybe it creates an illness to get you to slow the heck down.
Yep,
That's
that's
really
right.
fascinating. And whether you go and purchase these products, the whole purpose of this show is you can start making these things or researching or really seeing that you can harmonize with everything.
Yeah.
And to me, this gives us a lot of hope for humanity
Oh gosh, yeah.
with this.
Yeah,
Uh,
light is beyond physics. I tell you what, we see magic and miracles happen on a daily basis. Things that defy all all logic and all human mind stuff. I mean, I was telling you, Bart, before that if I get a rib out and I text my sister and and I can feel her pushing my rib back into place and she hasn't even read the text. I mean, we see people with fist-sized tumors in their lung in basically one telephone call with my sister, and all my sister does is she walks them into the heart space, activates that sacred heart, that golden fire, has them wrap it up. She doesn't do healing. She is just she's a guide,
more,
and she
more,
has yep.
more
And
like
we
the
see
question about, well, what vibration do I need to send Brian? And you two are kind of linked vibrationally, and she
mhm.
can just feel it. I wanted to thank Romo Combs, and MLM Crystals and Gems for chiming in there. And we're coming to the end of the show. And Brian, I just want you to think of a parting. Let's just say, I'm going to ask you a question. What hope do you have for the world and what you've learned in the last 10 years? That's my question that I'd like for you to end the show with. You think about that and give us a 1 minute answer. I want to let everybody know that you've been listening to Brian Besco of Twisted Sage, twistedsage.com. And this is Bart Sharp, and the show is Becoming Quantum Conscious. And you are on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Next week, it'll be Christmas Day, and we have a 3 hour special, and it will begin 2 hours before our normal time. So if you're in Central Standard Time, my show usually is at 2. This will mean it will begin at 12. If you're in Paris, France, that means it will be beginning at 5 p.m. And we'll have a 3 hour show, and I have the theme of living in a higher love, and I have 9 different speakers. No, it's 10. Uh, Giving different talks. We're doing 13-minute talks, and I'm halfway there in recording them, and so far it's been amazing. So that's a great Christmas activity. And Brian, what party wisdom you give to us?
All the answers are within, and I would like to take you in 30 seconds into the heart space. So close your eyes, put your attention to your physical heart, connecting heart to heart with the earth, and breathing in the energy of earth into the heart. Connecting heart to heart with you as soul, as creator God, breathing in that light of you into the heart. The third breath and the Trinity breath as you breathe in the energy of earth through you to creation, the energy of creation through you to earth, and you stand grounded, connected, and in the heart space. And this is where you can find all of your extra senses is from the heart and the answers. Much love and best wishes to you all. It's a
Oh,
beautiful world.
thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.